Chapter 4 of price is probably much more difficult than the first three chapters. And you're going to cover a lot of material, a lot of different concepts, excuse me, and there's just places where you can have computer error, operator error, combinations of both. And so one of the things I just caution you to make sure that you kind of have a problem solving technique in mind. One would be shutting down ArcMap if you keep getting kind of odd errors. Excuse me. The second one is rebooting your computer. And third, I've had a few students who had to actually reconnect to a fresh version of the MGIS data. So there's just lots of places that you can get yourself in trouble or where it will become difficult. She starts out the chapter talking about the difference between an attribute table and a standalone table, and the basic difference being that an attribute table has a field that includes the shape, whether it's a point, a polygon, or a line, and in an attribute table, there's only one record for each geographic feature. So for the state of Oregon, you would only have one row or one record. In a standalone table, there is no geographic field, and you could have many rows of data that are associated with Oregon. And when we talk about standalone fields, we're looking at Excel tables, CSV files, text files, and DBF files. So here's an example of the two table types. There's an attribute table in the upper left. I'm trying not to move that mouse so much. Anyway, you can see that there is a field called shape. Now, as you know, you could turn that field off, and so when you open it, you may not be able to see that. So you would want to look in, if you needed to tell the difference, you would need to look in the attributes in the fields property and see if there's a field called shape. The standalone table, again, there is no field that's with a shape field. You see the states, they both have state information, they both have other kinds of field information. So then she works through, we've done a little bit of this, but you're going to do some queries on tables, being able to use and, or, not, and like. And hopefully I'll show you a way to use the and. She doesn't, I don't think she shows that in the text. And so we've done some of that, but you're going to do a lot of that selecting in this chapter. So here's an example of a selection query when you select by attributes. So I did this in using the selection button at the top of the table tool menu, and then the layer I selected was states. Well, actually it defaulted to this because that's the only layer in my table of contents. But then I can create a selection by double-clicking population, choosing the less than operator and typing in a number. And when I do that, I get returned a highlighted attribute table that shows me all the rows of data that met my query, and that information or those polygons are highlighted on the map, or they're selected on the map. Now at this point there's lots of things I can do with this. I can save those in a separate layer, and you'll do that in price. Now when I save those in a separate layer, I have not disconnected the selected features from the original feature data set. And so whatever I do, I still have that original feature data set connection. If I, at this point, decide to save this as a separate individual feature data set, which you can do, then you would export the data, and then I would disconnect the highlighted data from the unhighlighted data and have a smaller subset. The other thing that would happen with this is if I were to do a summarize here or a statistics on the population 1999 field, only those selected records would be included in my statistics or summary. She goes through the difference between joins and relates, and this is probably one of the more confusing aspects, the idea of cardinality. Um, and the reason you might want to choose joining and relating is that this way you could have, instead of an attribute table with 50 different fields, you could have 10 separate standalone tables that you join when you need them. And supposedly this helps data management and keeping your files a little more usable. So when you join a table, you have a destination table and a source table. And in this example, I'm going to take this population 2010 data and I want to append it to my attribute table. And I'm going to be able to do that, you need a common field. And so I have two fields. In the attribute table, there's state name, and in the standalone table, there's state. So my field names do not have to match, but the data in the records absolutely have to match. So here I could join Alabama and Alabama, Alaska and Alaska, and that will work great. And so at the end of my attribute table, I would have both these columns of data. I would have a repeated state name column and then the population 2002. The data has to be exact. So if in my standalone table, if Alabama were in all caps, I wouldn't be able to join those fields. And so there's a little mini exercise that shows you how to convert all caps to lowercase in the field calculator. So when I do make a join is a temporary field. And so I can do some analysis, I can do some work, but I haven't actually changed my original destination table. So to make that join permanent, I would then export the destination table to a new separate feature class. Another common field besides a text field might be the FIPS number, which is the Federal Information Processing Standard number. And these are unique identifiers that you find often when you're using census data. And then other agencies will copy those field IDs because they're pretty standardly used. So the FID, or the identifier for Oregon, is 41, Hawaii's 15, Pennsylvania's 42. And if I want to identify all the counties in Oregon, each county would have a different number, with the 41 indicating Oregon and then the county numbers. So there must be 39 counties in Oregon. I don't know that for sure. I should know that, but I don't. And then you also would have a unique identifier for the census tract, so you would append that to the county and then to the block group. So you can get these just humongously long numbers, but each number is seen as a unique identifier. Another aspect of the FIPS numbers is that they are not a number category. These are usually a text field, so you can't add them. And so when you try to create your own FIPS category field, you need to make sure that that's text, because a text and a number will not join. So here we go into the idea of cardinality, and in a joining, there are two aspects you can do with joins, and the other two need to be done with relates. But if I have a one-to-one situation where I have a attribute table and I want to join that to another attribute table, and one record in each is the same as one record in the other one, I can join that. That's a one-to-one. So Oregon and Oregon, there aren't two Oregons in either of these fields, and so when I join those, I get a duplication. If the one on the left is my destination, I'll append the attribute on the right to the attribute on the left, and so I just get a duplication of the information there. So I'm going to stumble on this one, but anyway, the one-to-one relationship, here we go, is another example between each county and each county's population change. So there's only one Clark County in this state, and that joins using this ID number. There's only one ID number for Clark County in each state. And so that's this one-to-one relationship. Where it gets a little confusing is what's called a many-to-one relationship. And so, and the actual destination table is here. Okay, so I'm going to have land use, and I want to append this information, the detailed description, to the end of each of these, so that I have maybe map legend. And actually, it's called a many to one, but this is the destination table. So in actuality, it's many from one would be almost a better way to talk about that. But if you try to join the opposite way, so let's say I'm trying to append this table, land use, to the zone, that would be one from many. And that actually won't work because the table will go down and it will find the first MDR in this table and append that and ignore the rest. So with that eventuality, you need to do a join, and you'll practice this in Price, and hopefully that will become a little more clear to you. She talks about the difference between statistics and summary. A statistic would be where I right-clicked on the field and I did the statistics, and it would tell me the sum, the maximum, the minimum, the mean, that kind of stuff. But with a summary, I can end up creating multiple field queries using a summarize. And so in this example, I'm looking at the whole U.S. State data table, and I'm saying, I want you to summarize this field called subregions, and I want you to give me the sum of the population in each of these subregions. And so what comes out is a standalone table that can be added or not to your table of contents. And so what I have now is each of the subregions. I'm given information about how many states are in that subregion, and then it's summarized the population. So you'll do that in her lab, and you'll do in the tutorial, and you'll be asked to do that again in the exercises. So here's an example of taking that summarized table here and being able to put that into Excel and create a bar graph that would go along with a map. And it's kind of a nice way to play with ArcMap. She talks about field types, so make sure you're able to look at the field input and decide if it needs to be short integer, long integer. If I have lat long with 20 decimals, I would need to have double, because it would truncate up to 16. And I do not know what the blob is. She has that in there. Just basically, you'll do a little bit of table editing. Make sure you never try to edit your object ID or your shape field. And then she's going to end up talking about doing more selections by attributes. And then finally, the last part of the chapter, you're going to work on adding creating an event from XY table data. So here is an example of latitude and longitude in an Excel spreadsheet with a field with a school name, and I can bring that into ArcMap, and it will create a point file that you can save as a feature class. So lots of stuff in this chapter. Make sure you look at the guide so that you know what I'm looking for in both the tutorial and in the exercises.